Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the Noon News from Montana's news leader.
Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us on this Monday. I'm Aja Goare. President Trump says he will no longer support legislative efforts to protect the so-called Dreamers from deportation. He tweeted Sunday that DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, is dead, and he's pinning the blame squarely on Democrats and Mexico. CBS's Angelica Alvarez has more.
President Trump watched as kids rolled Easter eggs over a finish line, but it was people crossing over the border that was on his mind.
People are taking advantage of DACA, and that's a shame. It should have never happened.
The president blamed Democrats for failing to protect DACA recipients, these so-called Dreamers, who were brought to America illegally as children.
Democrats have really let them down. It's a shame.
He tweeted this morning, DACA is dead because the Democrats didn't care or act. Must build wall and secure our borders with proper border legislation.
The motion to concur is agreed to.
But during the recent budget battle on Capitol Hill, Democrats say it was the president who turned down a deal to fully fund his border wall in exchange for DACA protections.
We gave him every penny he asked for over 10 years and fixed the Dreamer problem, and he said no.
Congress gave the president $1.6 billion for the border wall instead of the $25 billion he requested. So now he's focusing on Mexico to stop immigration.
Mexico has got to help us at the border. They flow right through Mexico. They send them into the United States. Can't happen that way anymore.
The president claimed caravans of undocumented immigrants are coming into the U.S. through Mexico.
We do come over, but we have done more good than bad.
The president says he will end NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada, if Mexico doesn't do more to stop illegal immigration. Angelica Alvarez, CBS News, the White House.
Protections for Dreamers were actually scheduled to end March 5th after President Trump canceled DACA last fall, but court rulings have kept the DACA program in place until higher courts can weigh in. Meanwhile, the U.S. and China are one step closer to a trade war, with American farmers caught in the middle. Overnight, China imposed $3 billion in tariffs on 128 American products, including pork, fruit, and wine. China is hitting back against President Trump's steel and aluminum tariffs. President Trump says he's preparing to impose additional tariffs on high-tech Chinese products worth $50 billion. Turning now to the weather scene with Ed McIntosh. We're checking in on what we can actually see out there today.
That's right. We can't see much of anything, and that's where the problem is, Aja. As we take a look and see what's going on, we've got scenes that we're starting to get shaped up with perhaps areas where we're going to see a lot of wintry weather. Here's a shot from around Essex up towards Glacier National Park, and some other shots up from that part of the world as well. As we just scatter across the state, we can't see much of anything on I-90 or I-15 or pretty much anywhere else. Visibility will continue to be a real concern through the afternoon, as some areas will see slick conditions, and visibility will be one of the big problems that we'll have through the afternoon. We'll take a closer look at all of that with the forecast coming up in a few minutes.
Thanks, Ed. We'll check back in. A crash that claimed a man's life in Billings this weekend remains under investigation today. Police and emergency crews responded to the 1100 block of 6th Avenue North Saturday night. Police say the driver was westbound when it appears he lost control and struck a power pole. The driver, who was the only person in the vehicle, was pronounced dead at the scene. Police believe speed was a factor, but the incident is still under investigation. The man's name has not been released. The Missoula Children's Museum has been smoked out of its location above a cigar club and is now planning a move, despite its lease, which doesn't expire until 2020. MTN's Kent Lutzen has the story.
After 15 years of operating on West Front Street, the nonprofit is now looking forward to a new location next to Spectrum on Toole Avenue. However, this decision to move did not come easy. Months ago, museum patrons began sending complaints of tobacco smell to the Missoula County Health Department, which led to the Health Board filing a lawsuit against the Fool's End Cigar Club, located directly below the museum. Director Nick Roberts questions the logic of this dilemma.
How in 2018 it's acceptable for a cigar club to be a part of a building with multiple businesses and clearly has a compromised infrastructure that's allowing tobacco to flow between units escapes me.
What was supposed to be their busiest months of the year instead brought a closed operation, a suspension of critical revenue, and a lack of resources for families that rely on this facility not only for fun, but for therapeutic values. Robert said it wasn't just the building itself that was unusable. After more than a year of prolonged tobacco exposure, he said inventory was compromised.
We've sold some pieces, we've given away some pieces, and we've had to repurpose some pieces through partner organizations like Home Resource or Donation Warehouse. But ultimately, it's been a big liquidation process and a sad one, you know, for us to have to lose so much inventory for this particular reason. Not to say that some of it wasn't tired and needed rotation anyway, which was the case, but to have it be offloaded because of tobacco exposure is pretty inconceivable.
Robert said it's important landlords are aware and supportive of their tenants and their quality of facility and experience the public is being invited into. Now, the building sits empty, and plans are in place for the museum to move into the Tool Crossing building next to Spectrum Discovery. Roberts is excited for the future, and he hopes the museum will continue to serve the community in such a big way.
Well, I think what could get lost in such a dramatic transition is what we're going through is the fact that we've had tens of thousands of people that have been through these doors over the last 15 years. We are an organization that averages over 20,000 visits a year. And so this is no small deal. And we want to thank everyone who's been a part of this facility and making this a place where people have come to grow as a family, to play as kids, to play as a family, and to be a part of the community in such an important way for 15 years. It's a big deal. So we want to say thanks.
In Missoula, Kent Lutzen, MTN News.
Thank you, Kent. And the center is raising money for new infrastructure and considering a collaboration with its new neighbor, Spectrum Discovery. Flooding in north central Montana, creating an urgent need for animal adoptions at a shelter in Dodson. MTN's Kaylee Collins shows us some of the dogs adopted from rescue.
Tammy Ferris got her dog Tank less than a year ago from Rescue Dogs, but he hasn't always had such a happy life.
He had come to the rescue center, Rescue Dogs, when he was a pup. From my understanding, he and his siblings were thrown away in a trash can.
He had a significant skull fracture.
They didn't think that he was going to survive, but he pulled through.
But now that he's found his perfect forever home,
there's just no words that it's like it completes your home. Even though you didn't know that there was a hole or a gap in your home, it just completely fills that spot that you didn't even know was there.
Ferris says Rescue Dogs go above and beyond with their adoptions.
I was so impressed with Rescue Dogs because they take their adoption very seriously. Even if they're overflowing with animals, they want to make sure that their animals go to a good home.
Logan Carter is another pup parent. The original plan was to foster Maverick until the flood receded or until he found a new home, but Maverick won him and his family's hearts.
I'm very happy to have a bigger dog, and you know, you can't go wrong with them. They're really good partners and stuff. If you can foster or adopt one of these guys, definitely do it because they are the sweetest puppies ever.
Carter says these dogs need shelter, especially now.
A lot of these dogs won't have a home, so if they're out on the streets or something like that, we could start getting like a ton of dogs that will never get adopted and might never have like a really good chance to have a good forever home.
In Great Falls, Kaylee Collins, MTN News.
Thank you, Kaylee. Still ahead on the new news, the deadly police shooting in Sacramento could result in new legislation. We have the details. But first, Ed has our weather forecast. Stay with us.
You're watching MTN News with Aja Goare. Storm Tracker weather with Ed McIntosh and farm and ranch news from the Northern Egg Network. This is the new